I've always been one of those kind of people who never really seem to get disgusted about things that society has deemed disgusting or scary. Whether it's weird porn, gore, fetishes, horror stories, or hell, even a mixture of all five, it's never really bothered me. I guess this is all really stemmed from a rather odd experience that happened when I was around 7 years old, when I watched my first gross out video online. To be a little bit more specific, it was the infamous Two Girls, One Cup video. While I actually watched the video for the first time, I have to say I was a lot more intrigued about it than I was grossed out than I probably should have been, especially how young I was. Now, before any of you ask me, no, I don't have any remote kind of fetish for this kind of thing, nor do I go out of my way to actually watch this kind of stuff in my free time either. I'm not a sick fuck. The only thing though, that I can say on my behalf is the fact that none of these things bother me in any way. Hell, I don't even flinch when I see something along the lines of Three Guys, One Hammer, or puke my guts out, or be completely disgusted when I see through a page, scroll down the page of Offended. Of course, though, just because I don't really react too much to these said videos doesn't mean that I'm not at least disgusted at times, morally, at how these videos are even allowed to be on the internet. In fact, if anything does gross me out, it's the fucked up people online that not only make the videos themselves, but also promote it too via YouTube or other social media platforms for a rather ridiculous reason. Not only that, but the fact that there are other sites out there on the surface web that show this kind of disgusting shit, oftentimes to drive me insane. Which actually brings me to my own personal experience with the rather disturbing shock site that more or less was probably the one that managed to actually gain a reaction out of me and permanently fuck up my head for days on end. Now, I'm not 100% sure how I even managed to find the site to begin with, but if memory does serve me right, I was on my phone at the time, browsing around on Google for something to watch, as I had woken up in the middle of the night and really couldn't get myself back to sleep. Well, that and the fact that I had a really horrible nightmare as well, and because of my anxiety that I suffered through, I didn't really want to go back to sleep out of fear of having the same dream again, which tends to happen with me. So it was just me and my phone for the next few hours or so, scrolling around on Google for something to do. And of course, I really couldn't find anything of interest. I mean, hell, even my pinned adult websites that I tend to frequent failed to show anything promising. Minute after minute had passed, scrolling through on that stupid websites until I began to become a little bit annoyed. I was pretty much at this point going to say fuck this and just listen to some music on my MP3 player when something popped up in my head. Well, to be a bit more specific, it was a faint memory and a sound that for some reason immediately started playing in my mind. The visuals, although rather faint, were something that I vaguely remembered, sort of like a repressed memory or something like that. I listened on, and the memory played out a tune that I knew for a fact was something I knew. And then the ending lyrics of the Backyardigans came up, and then after that, it just stopped. Now, this was something I didn't think I would have been reminded about, especially around 3 in the frickin' morning, but out of curiosity, I decided to type into the Google search engine, and like clockwork, the results came up about the show, and which flooded my head with past memories of the show itself, with me watching the show on television when I was around 6 or 7 years old. I actually think, or at least from what I can remember, I started crying a little bit at that point. Which I know sounds pathetic for a man like myself, but hey, wouldn't you feel the same way if you started reliving your past childhood memories? At least the good ones? The next thing that I did after thoroughly bawling my eyes out was go on any site that I could find and binge watch the Backyardigans show. Which I did just that. I don't even think I got a lick of sleep that night, as I watched about all 79 episodes in total. Why there weren't 80, I don't even know. Yeah, I was a bit of a mess the next morning, but holy hell was it worth it. At least for me, that is. The next week or so pretty much had me spending time, finding as much about the show as possible. Information, Easter eggs, artworks, fanfiction, and hell, even creepypastas as well. Some of it was actually pretty good, although the rest was rather crap as well. But if anything, it felt pretty good to relive my childhood again. However, at around 1:20 a.m. the next night, I wound up waking up again to a rather demented nightmare that I still to this day can't fully recall. So as part of my usual routine when I have these kind of nightmares, I pulled out my phone and began browsing around on it, searching for the Backyardigans in the process. As I scrolled through page after page of information on Google, my vision wound up going blurry for a bit. And in that time, I wound up clicking on a few random search results by accident. When my vision finally decided to clear up, I was met with an ugly green-colored website that looked like something from the earlier days of the internet. Primitive, but at the same time, well organized. I immediately started to scroll around the site, trying to, with much difficulty, read the very light green text that explained what the site was about. As I tried to decipher the text, the screen blurred instantly and a small pop-up box appeared near in the middle of the screen with the I accept button on the far right corner. This text, in regards to the website, was actually readable, and it read as follows. Attention. This website contains content that may be unsuitable for younger audiences, cartoon lovers, or anybody in between. If you also can't stand to see people venting out their frustration via animation and the like, then please do the world a favor and get off the internet. If you click I agree, then you are fully consenting to seeing the content of the site and are forfeiting the right to bring legal charges to our website and prove that you are over the age of 18 as well. Enjoy the show. This was certainly different, yet at the same time not completely unwanted. Hell, I actually found the boldness of the warning to be actually kind of funny too. But the question of where the hell am I at still lingered on in my head. So, like the idiot that I am, I decided to click on the agree button and browse around the site again to see what I could find. Well, once the blurring stopped, I was greeted, yet again, to the site. It was still, and its unfortunate unreadable green text. Being rather annoyed at this, I highlighted the text on the screen and began reading it. Due to the fact that it was actually a lot to read and take in, I more or less ignored about, 3/4 of the actual article. The basic premise that had already been explained pretty well when I read the first paragraph, to put it bluntly, said that the site was created as a way for people to let their anger out, their frustrations, or even their kinks on any kind of show, mostly kid shows that had been tormenting them during their younger years. The site also advocated for absolute freedom of expression, as well as in regards to what the content had, so just as long as no actual people were harmed, it was fine. Odd, yes. Out of the ordinary, yes as well. But did it bother me? Well, to be honest, no. At least not yet. Like I said in the beginning of this account, nothing like that really bothered me too much, or at all. Even then, though, I did find the idea of this website itself to be a bit, unnecessary to say the least. Why exactly would somebody make a website like this? I mean, there are numerous other websites that provided the same kind of thing out there. I mean, why make this? Why make a website like this? I had a lot of questions, and the only way that any of them would even remotely be answered was to keep on looking around and see what I could find. As I searched around the site, I came across a variety of different sections and topics located on the top of the website page itself. Now, as for the name of it, it was a rather odd one. It was entitled Vent on Cartoons. Not really sure why they even called it that in that category, but I didn't really care too much. After taking a quick look at their FAQ section, I finally made my way to the video section of the site itself. Now here's the thing. The website didn't really seem to have a whole lot in it when it came to videos, which I guess is understandable, as animation does take time to make, edit, and compile together into something. But what weirded me out the most, though, was that there was only 7 videos in total. 5 of them in one section by the name of the Backyardigans, and the other 2 located in the section entitled Rules. I won't lie, I was actually really hesitant to even so much as click it. God only knew what the hell I was actually going to get myself into. And if anything, I genuinely do wish that I had just pretty much avoided the place entirely, went to bed, and forgot about this whole thing. Taking in a deep breath, I clicked on the folder that read the Backyardigans, fully expecting the worst to actually be there. Only for there to be, not a whole lot. I mean, there wasn't exactly nothing there. I mean, the videos were there, but the thumbnails themselves were completely and utterly blank. It was as if there was supposed to be something there, but the animator or editor forgot to actually include a thumbnail. which of course I probably chalked up to laziness. I was a little bit concerned for a bit, and kind of thought a little bit, whether or not if I should watch this or not, but I sucked it all up and clicked on the video entitled Pablo.avi. Now, for the sake of the story, as well as your stomachs, I've decided that instead of going into a graphic amount of detail in regards to what happens to each video, I'll give a bit of a summary of the contents of each video in order. Pablo.avi. The first video in question was around 2 minutes in total, which consisted of a perfectly rendered model of Pablo tied down to a gurney. The background in question isn't really anything that special. It looks more like a Photoshop dungeon of some sort, plastered onto a green screen, which, to my knowledge, all the videos that I'd seen, at least the few that actually worked, had that backdrop to it. Pablo himself was lying there on said gurney, shaking uncontrollably, with visible lacerations around his body. What they were from, or where they even came from, honestly, I have no honest-to-God idea. After a few seconds of seeing Pablo's shaking body, a door from off-screen opens up, and Pablo himself darts his head towards where the sound came from. His face takes on a look of pure horror as a large man dressed in a plague doctor outfit walked on screen. Once he's finally in the shot, and of course due to limited time of the video, the doctor wastes no time in doing what he was there to do. Torture and mutilate the small penguin before him by using various tools to get the job done, in the shortest time possible. The first form of torture that had been used was having his flippers and legs amputated with a meat cleaver, followed by swift disembowelment by various other medical-grade tools. And then, finally, decapitation. With what, I don't really remember, although thinking on it, I don't want to remember. All of these were in short 10-second slots, so there really wasn't too much else to the footage. The end of the footage showed Pablo's head being used as a bowling ball. I'm not shitting you when I say that. I'm not joking. They literally have an entire bowling alley thing rendered with Pablo's head being used as a bowling ball, knocking down pretty much a ton of pins as if it was supposed to be some kind of fucked up joke. Tyrone.avi. Like with Pablo.avi, the video wasn't really that long. In fact, it was actually less than a minute long, probably 55 seconds if I can think of it. The video begins with no form of introduction like in the beginning of Pablo.avi. It just starts playing the fucked up gore part, all within 10-second intervals. Tyrone having his antlers ripped out of his head, another with his tail being chopped off with a meat cleaver, disembowelment like in the first video, limbs amputated, hair shaved off, and of course finally decapitation. The final scene of this film ended with Tyrone's head being mounted to a wall, which, shockingly enough, was completely fixed up. It was pretty fucked up, to say the least. Tasha.avi and Uniqua.avi. These two videos, for some odd reason, wouldn't play. I have no real reason as to why they wouldn't play for me. I did everything that I possibly could to make sure of it that these things would play, but every time I'd sit there and try and, make them play, they'd play maybe a few seconds and then just immediately stop. I don't know why. I don't know, why exactly was it that out of all these videos, those two were completely and utterly unwatchable? I mean, maybe these videos were taken down by somebody, maybe it wasn't completely finished yet, or then again, if I really want to be realistic, it was most likely reported or something like that, or I don't really know. It's hard to really say. I mean, but the thing is, though, if it was reported, then why the hell were the other videos not being reported either? Still a question that I have to this very day. Austin.avi. Jesus fucking Christ. This one was my breaking point. You see, up until this video, I was pretty disgusted by what I saw, but at the same time, it really didn't bother me as much as it probably should have. That is until I wound up watching this video. Compared to the other videos that were mentioned on this list, this one's layout and time were not only, better looking in regards to quality, but also longer, about 5 minutes in total. The video opens up with a rather different opening, instead of the dungeon. It starts off with Austin sitting down at a table near his purple home, facing away from, well, the camera. Slowly but surely, the cameraman starts to inch his way towards the young kangaroo, making sure to dodge every time the kangaroo, started looking behind him. And after about a minute or so of this, the man finally stopped around a foot away from Austin. Then, just as Austin started to turn his head around for probably the third or fourth time, most likely hearing the noise behind him, a metal baseball bat coming from off-screen smashes hard into Austin's skull, causing the marsupial to go flying off-screen. The screen then fades to black, as Austin's unconscious body is shown on the other side of the yard. And then after that, it fades back in to the same dungeon scene shown in the last two videos, except this one was a lot more of a higher quality, and the door from before that hadn't been shown was visible. Austin, like Pablo, is tied down to a table with straps around his legs, arms, head, and shockingly enough, even his tail. Why, I don't know. Austin simply stares upwards with a horrified, yet at the same time blank look in his face. Most likely because of the possible brain damage that he wound up receiving from that violent hit in the head with the baseball bat. I mean, if anybody's head wasn't sit there and fucked up because of that, then I don't even know. Now, at this point, I was rather disturbed by the video I was watching. I mean, I would have just exited out of the video, as I probably should have done, like I've mentioned before. But of course, as I paused the video, I checked the time on my phone, and I knew that I'd have to get up soon for work. And any attempt for falling asleep would have most likely been fruitless, especially after what I'd seen. Not only that, but if I did manage to get myself some sleep, I would most likely wind up being late for my job and having to deal with my asshole boss, and honestly, I was not in the mood to deal with them. So I pretty much decided to keep on watching this for not only the hell of it, but to also keep myself awake. Now, during the duration of this video, about 2 minutes in, all I saw was Austin's character staring up at the ceiling, doing nothing but blinking. Then, I think it was around the 3 or 4 minute mark, I believe, and the undisclosed door from Pablo.avi opened up immediately, and out came the same exact man in the same Plague Doctor outfit. For anybody wondering, and I do apologize for not mentioning this before, the character in general, the Plague Doctor guy, was completely fully animated. Not an actual person or anything like that, just a fully rendered 3D model, most likely made in Blender. Still doesn't completely and utterly take away the fucked up factor from the video, but I thought I'd share it regardless. And during this time, I had a rather sneaking suspicion that this was pretty much going to be the same kind of video from the other two that I had seen. So I was kind of mentally prepared for what I was about to see. However, thinking back on it, I am sure as fuck wasn't ready for what I was about to witness that night. The man in the Plague Doctor outfit immediately walked over towards Austin, and then proceeded to start undressing him by cutting off his clothes one by one with a scalpel knife. This already should have been a red flag for me, but I guess I didn't have much time to really react, because what happened next was something that... my God. I'm not even going to really describe, because I'm quite sure that most of you out there don't want to hear about a young kangaroo getting horribly violated by some kind of fucked up 3D model. Jeez, fuck. Well, that, and the fact that the scene itself was enough to pretty much make me vomit in my mouth every time that clip comes to mind. This disgusting scene lasted for pretty much the rest of the video. And while there was no specific blood or gore or any particular ending like the other two, it didn't exactly completely take away the amount of fucked up shit that this entire thing had. And once the video finally ended, I just kind of sat there, or in this case lied there in my bed. Well, it didn't really take long for me to sit there and finally immediately nope the fuck out of that site as soon as that video was over. I didn't even bother checking the other two videos that were on there. Honestly, I don't even think I'd even want to see it for that matter. Well, to pretty much conclude, it has been a while since I've last seen those videos. Well, I can say that I've managed to slightly recover from the incident. I have pretty much lost my mind after that. No, I don't mean I went insane or anything like that, but I have kind of grew a bit of an obsession trying to find the place again. To which, even now, I still haven't found it. I mean, but then again, though, well, I don't know. I've looked around. I've tried looking at other websites. Still can't really find it, but really thinking back on it, my vision was extremely blurry, so maybe I wound up clicking a link inside of a link. And, yeah, it was... I'm not likely to find it. And another opportunity I wound up taking was to see if I could possibly try and report the site to the police, the FBI, or hell, anybody else for that matter. I mean, sure enough, I'd completely forgotten about the disclaimer at that time, but can you really blame me? My head, I guess you could say, was probably way too fucked up to think about that kind of thing. I think I even tried contacting my lawyer about the whole thing, to which he asked me a few questions about the site in general, about what was on there, if there was a disclaimer, and, well, a bunch of other things. And once I had finally answered them, he pretty much told me that while the videos and questions were certainly disgusting and awful, there wasn't really a whole lot that could be done against them. I remembered being completely shocked at this and asked him why that was the case, and he proceeded to tell me, in layman's terms, that the content in question didn't exactly violate any forms of law. I mean, maybe indecency, but even then, though, that was still an iffy one. Not only that, but the fact that it was protected under the First Amendment and fair use. The reason for this was because of the characters themselves, for one, weren't actually depicted as actual children. So there was that. And another one was while there was graphic content and other horrible things in the video, no actual children were harmed in the film. So of course, even if I did try and do any of these things, if I tried taking this to court, if I tried reporting this, if I tried doing any kind of legal repercussions or whatever, I would pretty much lose due to the reasons mentioned above and the fact of the matter that they had a disclaimer saying that this kind of thing was only meant for people who are, well, I mean, despite the fact that I am over 18, you know, they had that disclaimer there. So it kind of absolved them, at least to an extent, from any kind of real legal repercussions. I mean, and if I did manage to get anything, maybe I could probably get, you know, disturbing the peace or something. But even then, like my lawyer said, there wouldn't have been much for me to even do. So I'm simply here typing up my story. Just kind of trying to just sit there and let all this stuff out. I hear it's really good, you know, therapeutic or whatever, I don't know, whatever people have wind up saying about this kind of thing. Now, if anybody does wind up finding this website, it's really your own decision whether or not you want to view it or not. That's your decision, and I'm not here to make you not, you know, be on there or not. I mean, sure enough, it's fucked me up in the head a little bit, but everybody's different in a lot of different kind of ways. So maybe some people might enjoy it, other people might not. Although if you do enjoy that kind of thing, then you're a really sick son of a bitch and you should get mental help. But even on that matter, though, it's most likely still there. Will I ever find it again? If I have the free time, maybe I might. And if I do, I might share the link around with a couple of people. To only prove the fact that people out there in this world are truly and utterly fucked up in the head.
In fear and surprise, as your eyes widen, your mouth goes dry with each battered breath. You try to scream, your mind begs to leave, glued to your computer screen. The killers they slash, the tapes burn and crash. The cartridge you bought will be your final haunt. The rituals of hate will seal your fate. The tears you shed will be from the fear-gripping horror-driven nightmarish gore-filled, terrorizing, hateful, burning, violent, Rage-inducing knives slashing, blood splattering, silent screams. Only time will tell if you will escape this online hell. Your horror-filled obsessions will come with its own regressions. Your pathetic screams will not be heeded in any way, because your nightmares will come at any